Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about a tragedy, a travesty, a terrorist attack that took place in a mosque on a Friday, which is considered as the Eid of the believers in Peshawar, Pakistan. 59 people have so far been reported as dead, and over 150 have been injured. The last time I checked news, the rescuers were still clearing the debris, and it's possible that there are some people still buried as the roof of the mosque collapsed. And it is a shocking act of terrorism, even though in the past few decades we have all got used to hearing similar news frequently. But it's still very difficult to grasp as to how some people can so easily lose their lives as well as kill such large number of fellow human beings, fellow countrymen, and people who are part of your own community. I have been speaking a lot on this issue of the threat that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TTP), the Taliban faction that is of Pakistani origin, the threat that it poses not just to Pakistan, but to the region and India as well. And so to me, even though intellectually I expected and anticipated this, it is still very difficult to grasp it, the incomprehensibility of the inhumanity of this act. Let me say that again, the incomprehensibility of the inhumanity of this act is shocking and shattering. What I would like to begin is by first expressing my condolences to the family of the police officers who were killed. According to reports, this was a mosque which was in or near a police base, and most of the congregants at the prayer were police officers. And apparently, TTP is targeting police and military people for their acts of terrorism so that they are not accused of killing civilians and losing support from the public. So apparently, this organization, which just blew up a mosque, has support among the public in that particular province, which is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, also known as KPK, which is until recently governed by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's party. So so far, no one has actually officially claimed this act of terrorism. Some factions of TTP said they did it, and then there were others who denied it. The Pakistani investigation and law enforcement have not yet announced who the culprit was. The assumption is that there was a suicide bomber in the front row, and he detonated a bomb that brought the roof down and caused such tremendous and immense damage. It was a huge explosion which killed 59 people and wounded over 150. So my condolences to the family. These are not just ordinary citizens. These are police officers whose job is to protect, and they risk their lives every day. It is quite apparent that they do in performing their duties. And so it is a national loss for Pakistan. The Pakistani government should consider this not just an attack on a mosque, but also on the sovereignty and authority of the Pakistani state. Anything less than that would be making concessions to the terrorists. I pray for patience, and I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give some courage and somehow find room for those whose families have been devastated by this attack. The second thing I want to do is to condemn the Taliban, both the Talibans. The kind of violence they are unleashing in the region is just endless. I can't think of a single good thing that they have done. Unless, of course, for some people, driving the US away is something very great. And they feel that one thing is so good that everything else that the Taliban does is acceptable. I wish that they get to live under the Taliban rule, people who think like that, people who make excuses for the Taliban. I wish and pray that they go and live with the Taliban, with their women unable to work or drive and their daughters unable to go to schools. So I want to condemn both the Talibans. The Taliban Afghanistan, which facilitates TTP, and TTP itself, and all those inside Pakistan, in the government and the civil society, who understands why TTP does what it does. If you can understand this, then God save you and your country. The third thing that I want to say is that there has to be a response to this. And for the last 3 months, at least, November, December, and January, there have been daily attacks by TTP on Pakistani military, counterterrorism forces, on police forces. There were about 60, 70 attacks in November, 30 attacks in December. So this idea that the Pakistani state was not ready for something like this, especially after the attempt on Islamabad, should be unacceptable to the people of Pakistan. They need to ask, why was there an intelligence failure? Why was this allowed? Why was there a security failure? How could somebody carrying such a big bomb walk into a police facility and blow it up? What is he going to do next? Walk into the parliament or the police army headquarters in Hyderabad? What is next? So that is something that the Pakistani people need to demand, the media needs to demand of their government. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is that it's high time that the Pakistani civil society and its leaders recognize that Pakistan is now the biggest source and the biggest target of terrorism. So you have to recognize that you are the source and you are the target of terrorism. TTP doesn't come from anywhere else, it's homegrown. So this whole strategy, this long-term strategy of using these auxiliary forces. Pakistan has been using auxiliary forces since 1947, since the invasion on Kashmir, where some tribes were used to serve the interest of the Pakistani state. Since then, they have been using these kind of alternative forces to pursue their foreign and national security policies. They have to recognize that that particular strategy has unleashed a host of organizations in Pakistan who are now ravaging Pakistan because every other country is prepared to deal with them. So it's not easy for these organizations to attack other places, but it is very easy to attack at home where they have friends and where there are people who understand what they do as not entirely terrible. So that is an important part, that there has to be a recognition that this is unacceptable. And until there is zero tolerance for terrorism, this will continue to happen. I was engaged in many debates today, and I was horrified to see that many Muslims from South Asia, especially India, seem to understand that there are different reasons why TTP are engaging in the violence that they do, as if their reasons are understandable. I'm quite horrible. Once you begin to understand and accept the reasons, yes, I can understand that there is bad governance, there's corruption, all kinds of horrible things that the Pakistani government and its establishment does. But killing innocent people in mosques is not a solution. So that is an important part, that this avenue should not be acceptable to anybody. They cannot be heroes, they are terrorists. I don't think that this is a moment for extended discussion of policy and counterterrorism policies, but I do want to highlight two challenges that the Pakistani government faces. I've been doing this for months now, since I entered the YouTube discussion forums both in India and Pakistan. And what I'm suggesting is that there are two challenges, and I don't mean the two Talibans. Those, of course, are both threats to Pakistani national interests and also the region. But now Pakistan should recognize that it faces two challenges. One is the security challenge against terrorists, and the other is a political challenge against extremism. The reason why there are so many terrorists and terrorist organizations basically being nurtured or thriving, existing and operating in and out of Pakistan is because there is extremism in the population. And so it is very easy to recruit. And so people move from having a political position or a theological position which is extremist, such as so and so is deserving of death, wajibul khatar. And so the next step is to do it. But to reach that point where you are willing to consider that there are people deserving of death for their political views, for their social views, for their religious views, takes a lot of generations of hateful discourse. And so this hateful discourse inside Pakistan needs to be arrested. And I'm not saying that you clamp down on free speech, but it is important that saner voices become louder and speak up more frequently. If you think that what TTP did is un-Islamic, inhuman, immoral, and illegal, then say it. Say it again and again and again till people hear you. And if you're a person who has some social value, some social worth in Pakistan, then perhaps they will listen to you. But in that absence of those voices, the extremist leaders will simply justify that as, oh, this is religious. They will take some verse of the Quran out of context and justify this. And given the ignorance in the population, they will think what they're doing is God's work. So those are the two challenges. The security challenge from terrorists, they need to be crushed. Their capacity to attack needs to be degraded. And you have to address this threat of extremism. And this is all besides the other challenges that I've identified in my past commentaries on Pakistan, about environment, about corruption, about economy, etc. But these two should be on the top of the agenda. Crush terrorism, combat extremism. These are very important. I hope that there are no more new deaths. I hope that there are no more such attacks. I hope that the Pakistani government takes this threat seriously, does not accommodate these terrorists, and takes all the help it can from the US, from the region, from other countries. Recognize that these institutions, these groups, these organizations are not assets, but threats. I hope I was able to provide some understanding about what's going on. And I hope and pray that the families of the victims find comfort. I don't know how. Time is a healer. And I would ask them to reflect on the last verse of the second chapter of the Quran, which basically says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God does not put a burden on a soul before giving them the capacity to bear with it. So with that, I end this commentary. And if you found this useful, please share it with your friends and do subscribe to Khanversations. This is Muqtedar Khan, your host. Thank you very much for watching.